So it's been a while since I've actually provided a video in reference to my Zettelkasten and what I'm doing with it. I'm utilizing Notion as the actual application itself because preferably I like it at this point to be it. And essentially I have two hubs that I've created. I have created a personal hub, which you see here before you, and a workplace hub. And the workplace hub, primarily I'm just utilizing it right now to extract those personal contacts and other information I don't want solely retained at the workplace. I'm actually wanting to start to build the library on my own as well. But as far as the personal hub, that's my usually day or every other day that I go into. And I keep it pretty minimalistic, as you can see here. And so basically what you see is what I've done thus far. The section for the note taking is primarily those slip notes within the Zettelkasten type method, and the references is including the bibliography as well as the personal contacts. The other section for notes and tasks is just some things that I'm currently working on. But as far as the Zettelkasten method, as I mentioned in prior videos, in my understanding, to me, it's two catalogs. The first catalog is essentially the citations and the references or the sources. These would consist of your books, podcasts, all of the material that you're currently digesting, and then that you can use as a citation or reference to go back to if you want to do any follow-up. The other catalog would consist primarily of your note-taking. This is the basic essential for your, as Tiago would say, second brain, but I prefer to use the word memory, your memory bank. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at this. So if we jump into the slip notes dashboard that I have here, essentially it is broken up just like you normally would expect it to be, with the fleeting or temporary notes and viewable as well as the permanent notes as well. Okay. Right now I'm using it just primarily a table view, and the reason I'm doing that is, again, pretty minimalistic in regards to this stuff, and I like to just be able to jump in and take a quick peek, and also it just looks cleaner to me. However, a big shout out to Mukul Khanna, and I'm going to actually put that specific video as a link on this, because I was watching his video with Zettelkasten, and I'm actually going to try out his way as far as the viewing of these temporary permanent notes. So let's take just a quick gander of how I have this set up so far. So if we expand this out a bit, essentially I have my note, the tags, and then the note type is just a drop down, basically fleeting, permanent, and projects. And then of course the drawer is the way how you look at it, trying to categorize it into a broad, in my mind, the drawer itself, whether dependent upon the subject material and the content itself. And then of course the Bibliography Library, this is a relational database link back to that citation that I was referring to. And then of course the default created time, and then I would just put in a certain name to give it some type of information on what it's about. The number sequence I haven't messed with yet, but the property and relation to slip notes, these two particular fields would allow me to look at a certain note and say, based upon the content of this note, it kind of actually goes with this other note, whereby then I can link the two off the same database. So basically you have note 1 and you find note 34 that could also be utilized or placed together to create those paths, to create those links of the atomic notes or the atomic thoughts. The unique ID is just a default unique ID to keep everything individualized. But again, primarily a table view. So let me go ahead and open one up. So essentially I would just put in some little identification that you would see here. The created date and time is defaulted in, as well as the unique ID. Currently the drawer is quote thought defaulted in, because that's, I think, the last one I used. And then this is where I would actually put in my atomic note or something that I want to remember it. The note types is again the drop down based on what it is, and then these two relations can link two notes together in the same database. So this is simply how it is. Now if we look at it in a different way, which is what I'm going to look at here in a minute, on a gallery view, you have basically the properties that I have turned on thus far is just a name, and then I could come in here and I could turn on these properties which will make it visible within here. As opposed to a table view, the gallery view actually looks more like a note card. So I'm kind of actually looking at this, and this is what I was referring to back on Mukul Khanna. I kind of like this view actually, to be able to come through here and review all the notes up in one deal. Now as far as the properties, like I said, I can actually turn on a little bit more on here. So I could put in the reference citations of where it came from. I could put in the drawer if I wanted to, as well as wouldn't necessarily want to do the note types because unless it's permanent only. And then of course the number sequence properties and the tags. Tags I'd probably use as well as the note itself. So what's interesting is if we look at this one, if I have it in my current way, the form that I have in my table view, this is how I would basically see it, right? The notes down here and all these up here. Now if I open this up, the way that Mukul did it is that he actually, instead of creating a property note here, he just put the note on the bottom, right? So I could technically just put it on the bottom, and then if I go into the gallery view, I would have the note up on top and then have all my references underneath it. And I'm playing with this right now, and I kind of like this idea. And then I could even add the properties later on as far as the interlinking between two notes, and that in turn will allow me to see a little bit easier a quick visual of the relation of each of the atomic notes as they play a part in. So I may do that, and I may come back and create another video after that is done. But what's really cool about Notion is not only can you create these individual views based on what you're looking at, but you could also do it all filters too, and that could really streamline what you currently want to view real quick. Of course, the tags and such as that kind of helps also categorize these specific atomic notes on that you're creating, but it also kind of streamlines it a little bit. With it being in a same database per se on Notion, you can do a quick search and then search on any type of topic of material that you're looking for, and you can also bring these unique atomic notes up as well. So I may do that and come back and show you that, but for right now, essentially I just have a personal hub that I'm working off of. The Bibliography Library is just a quick table on its own. The sequence number is what I kind of added here because what I was finding myself doing is replicating the titles if I have more than one information that I want to pull from. So I was trying to create the unique ID here, but I may change this up and start to use the UID or unique ID that's defaulted in every time it's created. I think that would be a little bit more versatile. But as far as my library goes, just the title of what it's calling, the author if it's available, and again some tags if it's specific references, as well as the drawer that I use as a drop down, and this is again the categorization of the actual citation. If this is a video, that video could be a an additional subset, YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, etc. But primarily the drawer itself is the broad category that I'm trying to put these into. And then I may parse it down a little bit more. I just don't want to get too detailed because then you're working more on the detail as opposed to the actual atomic notes you're trying to generate and create here. The citation, if I have any off specific websites, etc. And then a note as far as the actual reference within that I'm going to pulling this information that struck me as interesting, right? And then, of course, the relationship to the quote, this would go back to those specific notes within the Zettelkasten portion of this, as you can see here. If I scroll down just a little bit, like the ascribed status as an example, we'll just take a quick look. So this is the actual title of the book that this came from, and these are the authors of that book. It is a psychology book, as you can see here. So I wouldn't have actually an online link as a citation. So you have to be a little bit creative as far as that. You will have some blank spaces. Creating databases, it's always kind of honed into you don't have any blank spaces. It should all be filled. And then, of course, these are the two quote-unquote Zettelkasten atomic notes that I created off of it. And I can go in here if I wanted to and add additional on the side, but go ahead and click that, and here is my note that I had made reference back in January. And this is the atomic note that I based the information from this book that kind of stood out to me. But anyway, again, just a quick video tutorial, or rather an overview of what it is. Stumbled over a couple of words, but I want to at least get something out there to give you an idea of what I'm currently working on. And then I'm going to also enhance this a little bit for my own and come back and give you an update.